Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Iran has launched a new wave of ballistic missile attack on Israel, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, killing at least 8 people hours after the Israeli military again bombed the Iranian capital, Tehran. Now, the death toll from Israel's attacks on Iran has risen to more than 220, including 70 women and children. Now, with the war intensifying, the biggest questions which everybody is staring at is that can Donald Trump really broker a peace deal, what he has been claiming? China has also thrown the has also thrown the hat in the ring by urging both Tehran and Tel Aviv to cool down the tensions. Now, how long will this war continue? What is India's diplomatic stand, and how will it impact us? We'll try and discuss all of this. Joining me now is Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha, international affairs expert and diplomat, joins us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. We have author and international affairs expert, veteran journalist Sanjay Kapoor with us. Thank you so much, Sanjay. And we have Pushpraj Deshpande, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra, is closely associated with the India Alliance as well. Thank you so much, Pushpraj, for joining. And I'll begin with Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha. Uh, Dr. Pasha, how do you really see the things unfolding between Israel and Iran? Now that Donald Trump has claimed that he will probably broker a peace deal, China also throwing the weight, saying that, and they have urged the two nations to cool down the tensions. Uh, do you see see this as a competing claim, or you feel that no, either China or Donald Trump could be successful in mellowing down the situation?
You see, the present crisis started in October 2023 when this Hamas-Israel conflict started, and the world believed that Israel is responding to this provocation, and but it has continued over the last 20 months in Gaza. But in between, we also saw Israel escalating into Lebanon and then into Yemen. And the other countries also, like the United States, Britain, France, and some NATO partners also got involved in Yemen. But they have not achieved, neither Netanyahu has achieved his goals of defeating Hamas and getting the hostages from Gaza and Hamas. Neither they have neutralized Hezbollah completely, nor the Houthis or Ansarullah in Yemen. So now what is unfolding in Tehran and in Iran is, for many international viewers, public, it's a continuation of the Israeli genocide in Gaza. And since the response from Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis was limited on Israel, now the world is aghast at seeing Iran retaliate forcefully into Tel Aviv, into Haifa and Negev and Galilee. Israel is a very small country, and the Iranian attacks on all of these north, south, east, west, Jerusalem also, West Bank also, is frightening the Israelis and the West. Never they expected such a massive retaliation, despite all the efforts to contain these Iranian missiles through the Iron Dome, David Sling, the Central Command in Qatar, and the American Patriot missiles, and all their wherewithal has not been able to prevent the ballistic and hypersonic Iranian missiles, which have penetrated all this multi-layered air defense. It goes to show how Iran has built up its capability, secretly over a long period of time, because they were expecting this massive Israeli attack in the pretext of destroying the nuclear program. Of course, they have done considerable damage to the Natanz and nuclear plants in Isfahan, but much more than these nuclear plants, and also the Tehran Nuclear Research Center. But much more than that has been the destruction of the production facilities, key military installations, and also the killing of scientists, nuclear scientists, and military generals. This is a very extensive attack, not only on the infrastructure, but also to cripple and devastate Iranian capabilities. Although Iran is a very big nation, in terms of territory and geography and population, also nearly 100 million, they have been able to absorb these shocks. But the wave of attacks from Iran are continuing, and I don't think Israel is in a position to absorb such
Right,
massive
but
retaliation.
Pasha, if you remember that yeah, Donald Trump had withdrawn the 2015 deal, which was struck by Obama in his first term, and Israel too at that time was very uncomfortable with the deal. So, what do you think would be the US's altered new deal, and how will it push? Will Iran also agree to it if at all Donald Trump attempts a ceasefire?
You see, the core objection of Israel and the neocons against Obama was that he was not firm in putting pressure on Iran to include two things. One is missile capability and the control over that. Secondly, that restrictions should be placed on Iran's axis of resistance. That is the Popular Mobilization Force in Iraq, then Bashar al-Assad support, and then Hezbollah and Houthis. Iran was not agreeable to this. That's why the negotiations took on for 15 years. And now Trump must be regretting that, by withdrawing from the JCPOA, it gave a free hand to Iran to enrich the uranium. And now they have considerable quantity, which can at least help them make 9 to 10 nuclear bombs, which is sufficient to deter any country. This is now become a burden for Trump, and he may not get even this because while Iran was negotiating, he was secretly given the green signal to Israel to prepare. And the way the Mossad mobilized their internal assets in Iran, setting up a drone base and getting payloads of trucks with secret material through Kurdistan, Erbil, and also through their Jewish Zionist supporters in Israel, in Iran, to identify the places of the scientists and military generals pinpointedly, like they did to kill Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. So now Iran has been bombed in the first wave, and Trump is demanding Iran that they should join the negotiation. Otherwise, the destruction and devastation will be brutal. And they have given enough weapons to Israel, and Israel is doing excellent job. He is praising. You see, the deeper problem about this conflict is not what Israel is doing against Iran or what Iran is doing against Israel. It is a competition over two global systems. One is between Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and silently by the global South and the BRICS, etc. But the other is the inability of the neocons and the deep state in America, because they are frustrated that they could not achieve their goal over Russia through Ukraine, and they feel they are on the verge of losing. So they have found a new way through Israel, through Gaza and Lebanon and Houthis to weaken Iran and to cut the umbilical cord between Iran, Russia, and China, because China gets most of the Iranian oil and gas, and it is part of the BRI in the Central Asia and beyond. So they want to overthrow the regime in Tehran and take over like they did in Bashar al-Assad by crippling and shock and awe bombing. But this is not going to happen because Iran is not Yemen or Lebanon or even Gaza. The Iranian capability they have seen much more so because now China is openly coming out in support of Iran because their national security is involved. Because if their energy security is harmed, they are dependent on Iranian oil to a great extent. Although they have the alternative Russian oil, but this is very critical, and they have invested billions of dollars in Iran in infrastructure. They have signed long-term projects, and their railway system is now linked to the BRI system, their gas pipelines through Turkmenistan. They have invested considerably. It will be a major loss. You see, the Chinese lost in Libya, in Syria, and in other Yemen and Somalia and Sudan and all. But now this is so near the Chinese border, they are very, if they capture Iran, the neocons and the Americans and the Israelis, it is just 145 miles from where they have stationed the nuclear weapons, the Chinese. So it is extremely critical for China to see that there is no regime change in Tehran. So is the case of Russia also, because once Iran falls, through Central Asia, the underbelly, the Americans and the deep state will engineer problems
No,
bypassing
but what
Ukraine.
you're saying that the deep state is very active. There are certain forces which are working behind this Israel and Iran war. I'll come to you now, Sanjay. How do you think that Donald Trump can really pressurize Netanyahu? Because Netanyahu has already defied Donald Trump and he's gone ahead with the attack. So, what is the kind of deal which Donald Trump is now looking at to strike with Netanyahu? I'm just wondering whether at all he'll be able to do that.
Thank you, Nilu, for inviting me here. I'm not very sure whether Donald Trump has the capability to persuade Bibi Netanyahu beyond a point, because I think in the US of A, the Israeli lobby is far more powerful than what we could really comprehend. The IPAC influences policy making, and they have the nuisance value that not people don't recognize for causing great kind of pressure or harm to the presidency. You remember how President Joe Biden, who was his predecessor, Mr. Trump's predecessor, he made all kinds of noises, but at the end of the day, he was providing all kinds of funds, resources, everything to the Israelis, and they were killing children without even having any kind of comms. Normally, one expects some kind of moral pressure to weigh down from the US, but there was nothing. So this time around, also, I'm sure there would be something that might happen only if the Israelis end up listening some of the voices which are coming from their own society. I read a very interesting comment a short while back where Mr. Bibi Netanyahu is being advised that, look here, Bibi, take the help of Donald Trump and find a way to sign a deal with the Iranians, because the Iranians have very long memory and they're used to suffering. So they may die in big numbers, but they may come back and cause great harm. So find a way to have a respectable, dignified deal with the Iranians and get on with life. That is what his advice was. So I would think that the Iranians have been able to inflict a great amount of harm to the Israelis. They were not expecting this kind of retaliation. And never before in the last many years, we've seen all kinds of confrontations take place between Iran and between Israel and other countries, as many bombs sneaked inside and killed or destroyed their urban infrastructure. But I think Iran has got a measure of Israel quite a bit, and they've been able to knock off many people. I'm told that Iran, to take on Iranian missiles, Israel is also putting up Barak missiles, which are far more sophisticated and than the existing ones, and hope that they can stop the hypersonic missiles, which are giving nightmares to the Israelis. Similarly, even Houthis have activated their own opposition, and also Barak, including hypersonic missile. So there is a certain coming together of like-minded countries, forces, which are building up pressure, as Professor Pasha said, that if the Chinese come in, they support, or for that matter, the Russians also come in, they have their share of treaties with Iran. Uh, Only a few days back, Iran and Russia signed a strategic partnership. So these are things which are can't be scoffed at.
Sanjay,
It
do you
depends
also
upon
see the
how far.
possibility, Sanjay, but do you see the possibility of US getting involved in the battle? As of now, it's trying to keep out. But do you see the possibility of at all Donald Trump getting into this getting involved into the battle?
So, Nilu, the game plan of nearly all countries, whether it was England in Second World War or Israel now, is to somehow drag US into the war, and they've been trying for quite a while. In fact, uh, Netanyahu said in so many words that these Iranians tried to assassinate him twice. This was obviously meant to drag him in, and somehow make him angry enough to join the war. But let's see whether it really happens, because I'm sure Israelis have a great amount of influence on US intelligence. but US also has a different opinion about how Israel conducts itself. So I hope there is some objectivity, and Mr. Trump is able to shake off whatever influence that Mr. Bibi Netanyahu is able to bring on him, and take his own decisions.
Right. But now I want to come to the diplomatic stand which India is taking. Pushparaj, what would you really say to the stand which India has taken? How can it really impact India in terms of the oil imports and also the diplomatic standing, which is very very crucial, coming as it does at a time when Prime Minister Modi is in Canada's Alberta, he's at the G7 summit. Do you think that India can really spell out its support? What do you think India can do at this point of time?
Niluji, very good afternoon to you, our panelists and our viewers. See, firstly, let's objectively view the facts, analyze the facts and that context will help people in India, especially, understand what exactly is happening and why India's foreign policy under the Prime Minister and the BJP government is so skewed. Firstly, Iran was at the negotiating table, which President Trump had initiated, and this was discussing permanent peace. It was supposed to happen last weekend. Now, Israel chose to initiate attacks before that meeting. Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Israel does. Iran is a signatory to the NPT. Iran still isn't. Iran has allowed IAEA inspectors into its nation. Israel doesn't. Plus, Israel is the one which initiated hostilities. Yet somehow Israel is the victim. How? Honestly, the West's hypocrisy is appalling. Given the fact that they have spent the better part of the last 3 years lecturing Russia about international law, when today Israel launched a war against Iran, assassinated scientists and bombed civilian infrastructure, the West is condemning Iran. I mean, honestly and ironically, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, genuinely did, this war wouldn't have happened. And that is precisely why I doubt President Trump will be able to negotiate a peace plan, because he admittedly knew about Israel's attack plans. So Iran, frankly, doesn't trust him. Plus, Israel's objectives are threefold: A, to end Iran's nuclear program; B, to weaken Iran's defenses; and C, to effect a regime change. None of these objectives are anywhere near completions. Because these objectives are not being met, and because PM Netanyahu's government's survival is contingent on war, this war will continue. I mean, it is in their strategic and instrumental interest to continue this. But I doubt it will weaken Iran's resolve. In fact, all that this attack has done is to strengthen the conservatives in Iran's parliament and weaken the moderate President Massoud, which is very dangerous. Now, I'm particularly appalled, which is to answer your specific question, I'm particularly appalled at how the BJP government is compromising our national interest by blindly supporting Israel's not just aggression, but its occupation of Gaza. Now, let me talk about just one thing. There are a lot of BJP supporters who are very supportive of BJP's blind support for Israel. This is partly their Islamophobia and their anti-Muslim stand. Now, the fact of the matter is, these BJP supporters need to understand that in supporting the BJP government stands on Israel's occupation of Gaza, they are indirectly weakening India's own case on Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, where Pakistan, like Israel, is illegally occupying a piece of land that belongs to another nation. But this stand, also by the Modi government, also weakens Iran, which has time and again, especially after the 1999, when we were hit with sanctions after we went nuclear, they supported us. They gave us cheap oil. They continue to doing that. It is also a critical gateway for us to Central Asia. Of course, it's via Afghanistan, and that is a whole different story. But that is also a viable. That is also an important factor. Plus, it is also a counter to Pakistan. Now, the fact of the matter is, this instability in West Asia, keeping aside the long-term geopolitical fault lines, which obviously this government is not looking at. But today, this instability in West Asia will make oil more expensive for us. It will also create inflationary pressures. And God forbid, of course, this is not the case right now, but God forbid this war escalates and they close the Hormuz Strait. Do you realize the kind of problems it will have? Not to mention the diaspora expat community that is living in the Gulf. Given all of this, why would any nation help India when we are in need, given how it is conducting itself? Another issue which should concern us: nearly 1,600 Indians are in Iran today. Thousands more are in Israel. Many of them are in areas where there is high risk to their safety because the current military engagement is very high. Yet the Modi government is neither initiating Operation Ganga or Sankat Mochan or anything. Instead, it is funnily issuing travel advisories and telling Indians, look after yourself, avoid movement in war zones. I mean, how often is the Modi government going to abdicate its responsibility to citizens? Whether it was in the COVID case, whether it is now, it is always doing this. But the largest structural issues, Niluji, and this is the last points I'll make, there are twofold. One is that in blindly extending support for Israel's occupation over Gaza and its regional and its aggression in its regional sphere of influence. One is that, as I said, it weakens our case on Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Additionally, and more importantly, it seeds the argument that nations should and can have spheres of influence. That is the BJP government sort of behaves as if Israel has a legitimate right to have control over West Asia, to have West Asia as a sphere of influence. Tomorrow, what is stopping China from attacking India's border, and how do we make our case when they also make the case that we also have a legitimate case to have a sphere of influence? Frankly, our non-aligned foreign policy has meant that we do not believe in the application of primordial rules of statecraft to redraw national boundaries or the external interference to effect regime change or even the use of violence in foreign policy. If we condone that, if we say yes, this is kosher, then we cannot expect the world to support us against China's aggression in Ladakh and Arunachal. Of course, the BJP claims no one ever came there only, or Pakistan's aggression, or even Nepal's claim over 400 square kilometers of our land. The Modi government's foreign policy has today completely isolated and alienated India. There is no strategic foresight, and we are reacting in a knee-jerk manner to global crisis. In fact, at times, I find it ironic. Our external affairs minister says that the world's problems are not our problems. This kind of transactional and instrumental foreign policy, it is not strategic or enlightened foreign policy. It is not, because no one wants to stand with us today. Case in point is that all-party delegation that visited 33 countries after Pakistan attacked Pahalgam. Barring 3 or 4 nations, which country has stood with India or condemned Pakistan? Which head of state has met any of those delegations? What have they tangibly achieved? My question is that after spending over 2 lakh crores on foreign policy over the last 10 years, today, the only thing that the BJP government has managed to achieve is ensure that India is no longer the leader of the global south. Why should we ever listen to what they are doing? Back to you, Neelu.
Yes, it's a tricky situation for India, how it's taking a diplomatic stand. But coming to Iran per se, Dr. Pasha, what is the message which Iran has sent out in this war? Certainly, that it's not so vulnerable as the world thought it to be. What is the biggest message which Iran has sent out to the world at this point of time?
One big message is that Israel is not.
They walked out of the meeting yesterday.
Yes, now they have confirmed that they are not going to negotiate with America as they have been doing. See, the one big message which Iran gives to the whole world, and particularly to the Israelis and the Americans, is, you see, stop believing that Iran is invincible, that nobody can challenge Israel and its superiority. No matter how much the Americans and the West support Israel, there are countries like Iran which will challenge and also contain. You see, if the Iranian attacks continue on Israel, it is very likely that what the Israelis and the Americans are expecting of a regime change in Iran, the regime change may in fact take place in Israel, because now people are realizing that Mr. Security, that is Netanyahu, who is claiming that he gives maximum security in Israel's history as longest prime minister, he has shown his people that how vulnerable his country has become to Iranian attacks, and also the Houthi threats, which pushes them into bunkers every other day. Even when the Hezbollah attacked, they fled from northern Israel. More than 3 lakh Israeli citizens are living in fear, in panic. They have not been able to send their children to schools. Their life is shattered. So is the Israeli lives in southern Israel near Gaza border, because they fear. They live in perpetual fear of rockets from Gaza and Hamas. You have additional threat to the Israeli citizens from not only from Hamas and Hezbollah and Ansarullah or Yemen, the Houthis. Now Iran has proved to be a potent threat. The destruction is life there, and government of Israel is hiding much of the military destruction which it has suffered, the air bases and the most important destruction of the Israelis is the Rafale military production complex. Where much of the Israeli arms production is taking place. That has been virtually crippled by the missile attack from Iran. It is a very big achievement for Iran that they knew this, they have pinpointed despite all the attempts from Iron Dome and David Sling and American attempts to cripple the fly of missiles from Iran and the Jordanian attempts, to shoot down. They have been able to identify their intelligence is superb. The Iranian intelligence of the targets they have hit so far, pinpointed. The number of civilians killed in Israel is far, far, far less compared to the Israeli attack on Iran, which has killed hundreds and thousands. We are not getting into the rubble still, which people are buried there, like in Gaza. The casualties are mounting in Iran every hour because of the continuous bombardment. So, you see, now the deep state and the Americans and the Israelis have to calculate how long Israel can sustain this bombardment from Iran, given the fact that the stakes are so high and they are increasing for Russia and China also. Every day Israel attacks Iran, the more support Iran is likely to get from these two states plus North Korea. And also Global South is watching the double standards of the so-called rules-based Western system. You are allowing your ally Israel to attack one country after the other. Where is the end? Where is the international law? Where is the United Nations Security Council or Charter? With impunity. If any Western country had been attacked like this, like what Israel has done to Iran, the Security Council would have met empty number of times and passed resolution after resolution and sanctions after sanctions. But nothing of that sort has happened because they think that Iranian lives are not important. This Muslim country is a terrorist country and it is trying to become a nuclear power, so it has to be crippled and devastated and regime change has to be attempted. So this double standards is weakening the moral fabric of the West and the rules-based order, and Global South is watching, and I'm sure most countries in Latin America, Africa, Asia, they want to become BRICS members and strengthen this alternative platform. Unfortunately, India is now becoming cool towards this BRICS, and under American pressure, this government is getting silent. Not only on the BRICS, of which it is a founder member. Very soon, if Iran survives this onslaught, the I will replace India with Iran. So we have to be very careful. It's a matter of just time.
Right. Okay, but Sanjay, since China has also jumped into the fray and they've asked the two nations to cool down their tempers, how do you think that dilutes the claims made by Donald Trump? Do we see this as a competing claim? Because on one hand, Trump has been claiming, and he did that yesterday only, that he'll try and broker a peace deal. Now, with China also urging the two nations, do you think that the situation is diluted a little with China jumping into it?
I'm not very sure. Fundamentally, the country that will serve as a peacemaker would be one who could be trusted by both sides. So at the moment, you get an impression that US or China or Russia, they all seem to be taking somebody's side or the other. So in those circumstances, you're not very sure how it is going to play out. But Russia is a minor power in comparison to US of A. And I think even now, despite the fact there's been a war raging and Iranians have been accusing US for supporting Israel to some extent. In fact, time and again, you keep on hearing some reports coming out. Mr. Trump would not like to be seen as partisan. He would like to arm twist. He like to be an elder brother who arm twists both sides and forces them to come to the table and negotiate. And he said that you can throw a few punches at each other, and then we can start talking about it. So I don't know at what stage he would like to show his muscle and get into the picture, and that is when I think Mr. Netanyahu would also listen, because he's not looking very good, Mr. Netanyahu. He's not covered himself with glory, primarily because there have been far more casualties than what he had anticipated, and his army is looking a bit jaded. His air defense system have cracked up. His much wanted, what is it called, the dome that he had created. The dome has shown too many cracks. Is allowing missiles to escape in. So I think Mr. Netanyahu would not be averse to having some kind of a treaty. And today, as somebody pointed out, IAEA is meeting and they are trying to figure out how did Netanyahu and Israel bombed Iranian facility despite Iran being an NPT signatory. So these are the issues that are coming up. I'm not very sure that will resolve the matter, but people are asking questions.
Yeah, I just want to add, Nilu, one point. The Iranian parliament, that is Majlis, is debating a bill from its members whether Iran should withdraw from the NPT. And if under the present circumstances, if they decide to withdraw, this will be a major, major blow to the nuclear non-proliferation
NPT.
regime. Because once Iran is out, nothing can prevent it from acquiring nuclear weapons, and it has all the wherewithal, and the single Herculean contribution from Netanyahu and Trump would be to make Iran a nuclear power, and with legitimate support globally, because now it has exposed that without nuclear cover, with conventional weapons, it cannot defend its regime. Like North Korea, nobody can touch North Korea. That's why Donald Trump had to go and plead with him in Singapore and elsewhere. Ki maaf kar do. But now, if Iran becomes a nuclear power, it will be a big gain not only for Iran, a second slap on Netanyahu and the United States, and the consolidation of the alliance between Iran, Russia, and China. And India has been saying that we don't want another nuclear power in our neighborhood. So it will be a slap for India also. Despite all your so-called civilizational relations and talk about friendship, you didn't want us to become a nuclear power. Now we have shown you, and we don't care for the other countries.
Okay, so the concluding comment from Pushpraj, how do the dynamics now change from here on? We do not know when this war will end, or will there be a ceasefire? Can there be a peace deal which can be brokered by Trump or China? But how do you see the things unfolding in terms of the geopolitical dynamics playing out, and vis-a-vis India, of course?
Look, the world is on the cusp of a major reorientation. There is no doubt about it. I mean, nations are aggressively reverting to primordial rules of statecraft, and far right parties are colluding to establish a lasting global far right movement. Now, all the norms and institutions of the liberal international order are being systematically attacked and undermined. We know this. Now, at this time, frankly speaking, we need to look at what progressive parties globally, not just in India, are actually doing. If you see that they operationally and normatively, they are calcified in time. They are simply not resilient enough to either address or redress this attack on the international, on the norms and institutions of the international world order. Now, I'm not condoning the international world order in its entirety. There are many things. The IMF, the World Bank are sort of instruments of the West's economic hegemonic power. I understand all of that. I mean, the structural adjustment programs and so on and so forth, they have been inequitable to the global South. Plus, they have not really Annex 1 nations, as they are called after the Kyoto Protocol. They've not really been very helpful to the Annex 2 nations, which is us. But the fact of the matter is that there was a certain, I mean, war seemed to be a thing of the past, to be as a thing to stay, and it is might and bullying that seems to be getting its way. Now, this is serious. This is a serious structural assault on all that we have come to believe is normal for the last 50 years. Given this, progressive parties, including in India, need to pose an alternative narrative. Now, Modi government is obviously championing a very limited, a very myopic, a very hawkish kind of foreign policy. Their foreign policy means let's do targeted assassinations in different countries. Their foreign policy means let's kowtow to big brother like President Trump or whoever the president in the US is. Let us create spheres of influence. We will have our sphere of influence. You will have your sphere of influence, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, this is not going to fly. So the Congress Party and the India bloc need to collectively pose an alternative narrative, work closely with other progressive parties, and try to firstly restore a semblance of order to the international order, and secondly expose, at least in India, expose the BJP's failures in foreign policy, geopolitics for what it is. We are completely isolated in our neighborhood. We have no good relationship with either China or Russia, or now increasingly with the US. West Asia will stand to move away from us if we continue this myopic and blind support for Israel. I mean, I genuinely don't. And plus, our raw units have been asked to leave from Germany, US, Canada, UK. What your earlier question was, what is Prime Minister Modi going to do when he goes to the G7? People are going to basically tell him that you are like a pariah party. This is the problem. It is not that India doesn't. Everyone wants to ally with India. We were once valued as the democratic counter to China, but today, because of the BJP and the BJP alone, no one wants to partner with the BJP government. And I'll tell you an example for this. After Pahalgam, a day after Pahalgam, 100 parties from 100 progressive nations, of which 26 are in government, stood with India condemning terrorism, including by state sponsor, including terrorism that is state supported, and condoled the victims of Pahalgam attack in Hyderabad by a Congress-led government. Now, my point is, if the Congress party, an opposition party, can do that, why is the BJP government not been able to rally the world against in our support and against Pakistan? That is because there is something problematic with the BJP government's foreign policy. No one wants to work with them. And this is something that we all, every patriot in India, needs to think about this very carefully.
All right, so we'll have to wait and watch how things unfold as far as this Iran and Israel war is concerned. When does it end? What is the kind of steps which America takes? How does China intervene? A lot of interesting angles over there. And what Dr. Pasha was saying, that there are the deep state seems to be very active to dethrone the Iranian government. So these are some very strong developments, if at all this thing happens, and also some worrisome developments over there. We'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Dr. Pasha, Sanjay, Pushpraj. Thank you very much for joining.